Al, my friend and my brother, how are you? Long time no see. You may be not even able to recognize me. David, Marcus, friends of yours from a long time ago. Hey, I wish I could be there with you tonight. This is a well deserved honor, and congratulations for a great, great career. I'm sure you were the best teacher in the history of the world. As you remember, I used to want you to come and tutor my kids. That was our big plan. I was going to be rich something or other, and you were going to come and be the tutor for my children. But the money thing didn't exactly work out, and you got busy in Rome, Georgia. So good for you. Hey, Al, I was thinking about it. It's probably 40 years ago that we first met. It must have been 73 or 74, somewhere in there, back in East Lansing, Michigan. And I was thinking that some of your kids' parents probably weren't even born then when we were working together. And so, for those of you out there that don't know, Al and I first met when I was working at a hospital with Al in East Lansing, Michigan. And I got hired onto the job, and Al was already working there, and his job was to orient me. So the orientation went pretty much like this. Al was there. I walked up to him, introduced myself, and he said, very serious and sullen. He's like this tall compared to me, big, strapping guy. And he said, "Look around you." So I looked down this hall and I looked down the other hallway, and he said, "This is my kingdom. I am control here. I'm in control here. I'm going to do this part. You do everything else. How does that work for you?" And it was kind of a strange thing. But I looked around and looked at Al and thought, yeah, I can do that. I can live with that. And that is how you get along with Al Gifford. Whatever he says, you just do it with a smile on your face, and you'll be best friends forever, just like us. So that was actually a really interesting job, and we spent a long time in that hospital together. Al and I did, and I want to tell you a little bit about it because it tells you another thing about who Al is. And this was a kind of a serious floor. It was the Spinal Cord Injury and Stroke Rehab Center for East Lansing. So, I mean, it's a lot of kids with spinal cord injuries, permanent paralysis, people with strokes, people with neurological problems. You could think that could be kind of a depressing place to work, but thinking back on it, I had a great time there. And it was Al Gifford made that place a positive, loving environment. It's really true. Al set the tone for that entire unit, and everybody there kept a positive attitude. Everybody was happy, having a good time. But mostly, it was the patients, because these are kids that came in there that, in some way, had kind of lost everything. I mean, really. And their parents, their friends would come in, and everybody would treat them differently. You could see it. They treated them as a victim. But Al Gifford never did that. Not for one day, not for 1 second. When Al talked to these kids, he looked right through them, and he saw who these people were, that they still have gifts. They're still who they were. They're just in an uncomfortable, new, and unfortunate situation maybe. But Al just showered these kids with compassion and love, and a sense that their life is still ahead of them, just like it was, 2 weeks before. And it was really an interesting thing to see how these kids responded to Al. I mean, he would walk in the room and they would just beam. They would love to see Al there because he reminded them that there's a future, there's a life, and that's what Al's about. Al's about love and compassion, and it was really well demonstrated there. And Al was a really good example for me, especially with the career choice I made. Going into medicine, it was a really good lesson. Um, and do you remember that one night? I wish I could remember the kid's name, but Al Gifford actually stole a patient from that hospital one night. I can't remember what was his name. It started with a B. It's like Buford or something. But this kid had been with us for 3 or 4 months, was doing well, but had kind of hit a plateau and was starting to get depressed. It's like, wow, my friends aren't visiting me. What's my life going to be like? And Al was just not going to have any of that. So one night, Al just Al and a couple nurses, and of course me, because he said, "Dave, you're doing this tonight." And I said, "Does the hospital know?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Well, can I lose my job because of this?" He said, "Yes." But I'm going, right? He goes, "Yeah, you're going." So we steal this kid from the hospital and take him take him out to the bars drinking all night. It was he just it's exactly what he needed. I would have never even thought of it, but it's exactly what he needed. A reminder of his old life, a reminder that there's life out there outside these hospital walls. And that was Al. Risk everything because that's what this one boy needed at that time. Never thought about himself. It's just, we're doing this. And that young man made a very quick recovery emotionally and was out of the hospital in a short time and did very well. So that was Al, kind of just always about the other person. That's just who he is, a giver. And I should tell you, Al, because you don't really know this, but it's another example of your giving nature, but also something I want the kids to kind of hear a little bit. And so Al and I lived together for about a summer, I think it was, maybe a little bit longer than that. I think I was a sophomore in college, and Al, you were a little bit older. And I think I lived on the living room floor and, that kind of thing. But it was a time in my life where I was starting to doubt my life's mission of wanting to become a doctor. So I'd kind of always thought I was going to be a doctor, and I had doctors in the family, and I knew it was a good job. But for some reason that year, that summer, I just had doubts about what I was going to do. I just didn't want to do it. I didn't want to put all the work into it, I think is what it was. It's a long haul. It's a lot of work. And so, Alan, I know you'd like to forget, but you and I had many conversations that summer about helping me to work through my issues. And every conversation would start with, "Al, what do you think I should do? Al, do you think I should be a doctor? Al, do you think I should do something else?" And never once during any of these conversations did Alan ever tell me anything. What would he do? He would ask me a question. And I was too stupid to figure out what he was doing at the time. But he would ask these questions that would take me around and around and around my issues. And every time we had one of these conversations, and there were many, it would always end up with the idea that, "You know what, I want to be a doctor, Al." And he would just sit there and kind of smile at me. I don't think he said a word. I don't think he said a word. He would just always help me to figure out what I wanted to do, what I truly wanted. And so not only is that a great tool, by the way, kids, when you have children, by the way, it's don't talk, but listen, because they'll tell you what they want. They'll tell you what they need if you give them a chance. And that's what Alan did with me. But the real benefit, Al, to me was that I was thinking about this recently when I was talking to somebody that had also gone through medical school. I never suffered through medical school. Most people go in and they're doubting, "God, this is so hard. I wish I could quit, or should I quit, or should I do something else?" But I never did that, not for a second, because I had already done it with you previously. So I was completely committed to my course of a career way beyond most people because of you. And I really didn't even realize that, how beneficial that was for me, because you let me decide what I wanted and I was committed to it. And man, if you kids can do that or follow that example, it would be very helpful. And so thank you, Alan. And what else? I mean, I wish I could be there with you to see you, give you a hug. But do you remember the very first words spoken to you by a person in Georgia when you moved into your new house? When we drove Alan's, it was a U-Haul van all the way from East Lansing, Michigan, all the way down to Georgia, all the way into Rome, and all the way up his little driveway there. And as soon as the key turns off, we're thinking, we made it. But before Alan could even get out of the door, there was this 90-year-old little lady, you remember, Al, standing at your door of your car going, "But you killed my dogwood." I didn't know what a dogwood was at the time, but now I do. But you killed it anyhow. And she kept saying, "But you killed my dogwood." And of course, you were, really upset by the whole thing. And I'm sure I was very helpful as I kept cracking up all day over it and have for years. I think about that all the time. But you killed my dogwood. So I hope things got better for you in Rome, Georgia after that, Al, but I'm not so sure. And God, what else? What else? Hey, my son John has followed your footsteps, and he now is a math teacher at the local high school, and just like you, is absolutely committed and loves his work. So um, it allows me again to realize just what an amazing contribution that you have made to so many lives, Al. I mean, it's really mind-boggling to think about all these kids' lives that you've touched. And I know what kind of person you are, completely dedicated, completely outwardly focused. I mean, you were in these kids' lives to make them better people, and I know you've done that. And the thing with doing that with kids is that it's generational. I mean, you make them a little better friend, a little better student, a better son or daughter, or probably you're making all of them better parents one day. I know you did me, and that's generational, man. That's them. It's their children. It's their children's children, and you in what you've done have touched generations of people. So it's a life well lived, my friend. A life well lived. So Al, congratulations, and there couldn't be a greater honor for you than to have a party like this and to have people there showing you their support. But even those that aren't there, you know that they're there for you. You know that you touch their lives. You just know that. It's like when you're a parent and your kids don't want anything to do with you, you still know you're doing something with them, something for them. So wish I were there. Love you very much. And there's no way you would know it, but you honestly were the most influential friend to my life that I've ever had. And it's just some of the things we talked about today. I just remember the way you were, and you made me a better person too, Alan, as a better doctor, better husband, better parent. You really, really have. So your kids, they are lucky. They're lucky to have you. Love you very much. Look forward to seeing you one of these days. And thank you, kids, for putting this on for my friend and my brother. Love you.